Hey guys, little update on the Cafe de Bangkok tank. Corals are definitely growing. Fish are all doing well. Well, with the exception of the purple tank. Still got some lateral line erosion, but really doing good overall. That purple Sinularia has done some significant growing. This, well, should be a green toadstool, has come around a lot. Capnella, or the green Capnella, or teal Capnella, I call it, up here is growing in pretty good. Green star polyps are starting to take off. Little piece of Grub's gorgonian is taking off pretty good. The Caribbean knobby sea rod gorgonians are doing really well and starting to grow really well. Orange oxides, hopefully those will keep going and taking over. No shortage of green Rhodactis mushrooms. Those things are kind of a weed in this tank. Both the shrimp that I added are doing really well. Got some metallic orange discosoma and blue discosoma mushrooms that are slowly doing okay. I really want to get the oranges taken off again. This is one of the only colonies I have. Another big teal Capnella. That one's really pretty. That one's doing really well. The Liam's cloves are not really thriving. They're hanging in there, but I think they need some more light, so I may end up moving those. Purple candelabra gorgonia, it's Caribbean photosynthetic gorg. That's doing better than it had been. It's not really growing a whole lot yet, so give that one time. These ORA Grub's gorgonians, though, these two big ones, they're just giant. Well, compared to most tanks, these are giant. They're each about a foot tall and 6 or 8 inches across. You know, this one's probably a foot wide as well. They're a great gorgonian coral if you like a coral that likes to flow and move in the current. And a little thing of Rasta zoanthids, those are doing okay. This green polyp toadstool has been putting on a good amount of growth. It's closed up right now, but you know, not every coral can be happy at the same time. And we'll go around the other side real quick. Now this is a Thai food restaurant, so this is kind of like the main separating wall of this restaurant. And now I come on this side. Giant lavender tipped Rhodactis mushroom. That thing is a good 6 inches across. They get bigger than that though. The one rainbow bubble tip is finally settled in nicely. It was roaming around the tank for quite a bit there. And we've got a nice little pair of aquaculture Decellus clowns in there. More knobby sea rod gorgs, more of the Rhodactis mushrooms. This is a cool toadstool though. It's sort of like a snowflake polyp toadstool, but not quite. It's very more frilly, kind of like a yellow elegance toadstool, but it's not that either. And you see just how ruffled this thing is, and it's got big daisy polyps. It's really quite a nice coral, and I'm actually going to end up having to either trim it or relocate it to a different area in the tank, which I'm leaning towards relocating it, just because if I trim it, then I've got all the trimmings I have to deal with floating around in my own system and trying to attach them, and it can be a little bit troublesome. I did do a video on an easy way of getting these to attach. If you guys go check that out, it's super simple, but again, it's a time thing. And then more of the green Rhodactis, and there's some blue ones. The blue really does. The greens will outcompete the blues, unfortunately, but when you get those two contrasting colors together, I mean, that's cool. And then you throw in those sparks of orange like that. I just love it. And then, yeah, nice little sea cucumber all balled up. So, this is a pretty cool tank though. This is, I want to say this tank is coming up on, well, no, it's not even a year. So this tank, we redid this tank in, well, this tank was flooded December 18th from, the beautiful Kennebec River that came up into the restaurant. And there was about 18 inches of water where I'm standing. And 5 days of no power, no heat, and me on a rescue mission to save everything in this tank. Okay? Well, we saved almost everything. Basically everything you see here, minus a few things I added. So we'll go back around the other side. And that's my overflow system. I do need to get these pumps cranked up a little bit more. So this is the one issue with hang on back overflows. If you don't have enough water flow, they'll build air bubbles in the U-tube, and eventually they'll break siphon. So I got to crank up the flow a little bit more, but aside from that, these things work flawlessly. But it's a pretty basic saltwater reef tank. It's completely soft corals, super low maintenance. I don't have to dose calcium, magnesium, or alkalinity. I really only maintain salinity in this, or specific gravity is how I measure it. And I keep that usually about 1.026. And I do check alkalinity from time to time, just because some of these leather corals do use a little bit of the calcium and alkalinity to build some slurities, or I think that's how you pronounce it, the little needle-like structures that are in the base of these bigger soft corals. So over time, your alkalinity will dip down, but oftentimes it really doesn't change. So the one issue we do deal with in this tank a little bit is phosphates. I don't control how much gets fed to these fish every day. I can only recommend that the owners do what they want or do what is right. It's been better though, but like you see, we still get some film algae, and you can see some film algae in the corners there and on there. And actually this week it's really quite minimal. But years back, I used to come in here and the entire tank would be green on all the glass panes. And that was from super high nitrates and phosphates. So now that we're on a better maintenance schedule, we've rebuilt the tank, they've really improved a significant amount. And show you guys the sump again. Basic sump system. So in this restaurant, we didn't have room for an auxiliary space for water change station. So that one brute trash can is where I mix my salt water. It's got a float valve in there with a ball valve. And then this 1 5-gallon bucket, same deal, a float valve and a ball valve. It's just the eShop's float valve. And so the brute is for salt water. The 5-gallon bucket is an auxiliary container for extra RO water. So occasionally, when I mix my salt water, I don't use the entire amount in that brute can. Sometimes there'll be, 5 gallons left. Sometimes there'll be 10 gallons left. So the amount of salt I add isn't the same every week. And the following week, when I do my water changes, I always have to test it. And sometimes it'll be off. If the water's too high in there, I'll take from this bin and I'll adjust it with some RO water to bring this salinity down to match the display. And that's worked really well. And if obviously I've screwed up and the salt level in the brute can is too low, I have to add more salt and then come back the next day. But basically, simple sump. There's my heater, which actually is, I gotta turn that down. Octopus, or Super Reef Octopus protein skimmer. I love octopus skimmers. They have worked flawlessly for me for about 10 or 12 years now. And I've been in this hobby 18 years, and I've really ended up sticking with octopus skimmers. Coral View's a good company, and they have treated me well anytime I've had a warranty issue. But basically, that's my auto top off. Yes, float valves can have their issues. Yes, they can get stuck open. 99% of the time I've found it's been user error. Maybe I've stuck something too close to it and it's stuck the float valve open, or you go down the list. It's generally user error though. I've only ever had one fail on me, and it was an old Kent float valve, and that's because the actual gasket went bad. These eShops ones I've had zero problems with that I couldn't attribute to anything other than myself. But yeah, mag drive 2400 pump, which you can't really see in there. It comes up to a ball valve and then straight up to that return with a siphon brake. And then all my overflows come right back down into that skimmer chamber, and it flows off into the main chamber. So in this skimmer chamber, I've just got one baffle, and then I point my pump intake away from the bubbles. Most of the bubbles rise directly to the surface, so I never get micro bubbles in my display tanks. Look at that, it's crystal clear. And that's worked for me for a long time. It's just a 1/4 inch thick Lexan sheet or acrylic sheet that I silicone in. A lot of people will tell you silicone will not stick to acrylic. It will if you prepare it correctly. I take 80 grit sandpaper and I sand the edges up on either side of the acrylic. And a lot of the time I'll just take a DA sander or an orbital sander and I'll sand the entire sheet. And that just, it's just easy. But that basically allows the silicone to adhere better to the acrylic baffle and to the glass. So I don't have to risk those acrylic baffles actually breaking and falling over. If you don't do that, sometimes the silicone won't fully adhere to the acrylic and you can lose the baffle, and it's a pain in the butt to have to redo that after the fact. So pretty much you have to tear the entire sump apart, dry it, clean it, put a new baffle in. A lot of people do glass baffles and they'll do bubble traps with this one, and the water goes down in and comes up over another baffle. And I've always found that in between those dual baffles is where a lot of crud builds up. They're a pain in the butt to clean, and being glass baffles, at least in my experience, I'm more likely to break those by messing around with rocks and stuff. As you see, I keep a lot of live rock in my sumps. This one actually doesn't have a ton, but I'm always shifting stuff around there anytime I have to do work on a pump or on a skimmer or a heater or something. And if it's more glass in there, it's more likely to get broken. So either way, basic simple sump. We got light ballast or light power bricks up there. This tank has max spec, what are they? Max spec Razor 420s. They have a great color. I honestly don't like these lights though. These are actually quite old now. I think these lights are like 7 or 8, or actually closer to 10 years old. But all they have is these one little knobs with controls. You can go through the different cycles. And the thing I don't like now is the timers don't work on these lights. So each one of these lights I have to work specifically from like a outdoor light timer behind the counter over here. And while it works, it's a pain in the butt. I wish all these lights were a little bit easy to work with, but for what they are, I mean, they are growing coral so well. And they really do show off the colors on the fish very well. But we actually, speaking of fish, we just added a fair amount of fish recently. So we added 4 green chromas. So actually we added 5, but I bought them 4, added another one of my own, just my head kicking around. We added another one of the pajama cardinals, actually that little one there. And then the azure damsels, which are my favorite damselfish. I bought them 2, and I had a third one of my own kicking around in my sump. I just said, screw it, I'll add him too. So we added 5 chromis, 3 damsels, and a nice pajama cardinal to go with the original pajama. And that was shortly after we added this pair of clownfish. All these fish, aside from the 2 that I had donated, were purchased from one of our great local fish stores, Fishtails Pet Emporium up in Waterville, Maine. If you guys are in the area, I really suggest going out and checking them out. They're probably the best all-around mom and pop type pet store / fish store that I have seen in a very long time. They do reptiles, small animals, and fish and birds. And Gene and Jen, the owners, are amazing people. They care about their animals. They care about their employees. I just can't say enough good about them. And they're actually getting into the saltwater stuff fairly well now. They've got 4 tanks up and running and a whole wall of saltwater tanks ready to get set up to complement the already amazing amount of freshwater tanks they have. And they have some amazing stuff that they stock. And normally they have an amazing reptile selection too, but I think part and partial because of this, a lot of people have bought their stock, so their inventory on reptiles has been a little bit light lately, or at least snakes for what I'm looking for, but they stock some cool stuff. So go check them out, guys. They are on Facebook, and I don't know if they're on YouTube or not, but either way, if you're in the area, check them out. Great local fish store. And like I always say, any chance you get, please go out and support your local fish stores. These local fish stores are the backbones of our hobby. If we don't support them, they can't be there to support us when we need it. So like a case like this, if I need to replace this pump today, where do I go? I have to go to my local fish store. If my local fish store doesn't have patrons coming in and buying stuff to support them, they're not going to stock pumps for a person like me to come replace a pump to keep a tank alive for a day. So support your local fish stores, support your local pet stores. They're the people that are going to help support us when we have an aquarium emergency and we have to save something like this beautiful reef. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoy this. This is a little bit, probably my longest video yet. I've been taking care of this tank, I want to say 14 years, give or take. And it's gone through various different iterations. This is only its newest. But either way, I hope you guys like this. I hope you guys will check out the YouTube channel, the Instagram and the Facebook channel for Facebook page for Maine Aquaria. Give us a like and a subscribe if you don't mind. Share our videos. We're doing this because we like it. I got a lot of crazy knowledge about reef tanks stuck up in this head of mine, and I like to share it, and I like to help people out in this reef hobby, because it's an expensive hobby that doesn't need to be expensive, and there's a lot of things you can encounter, issues that can be relatively easy to fix if you have somebody that you know can help you or has encountered it or knows what to do. So either way, guys, hope to see you on another one, and happy reefing.